Today, I want you to learn and absorb from the master himself, Shep Hyken. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Coach U Show. Today, we have a special guest. He is the world's #1 customer service speaker. He's written 8 books that are New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestsellers. He's done it for 39 years. He has a virtual training center, courtesy of Brad Lee and mutual friends that we have. We are friends in a mastermind, and we're actually going to hang out together in November too. I was also on Shep Hyken's podcast too, and he wrote an article about TikTok customer service on Forbes. Today, I want you to learn and absorb from the master himself, Shep Hyken. Welcome, Shep.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. By the way, you said we're going to be in New York November 2. You meant TOO, not number 2.
Yes.
I think it's November 18th, actually.
Yes, November 18th for the conference called What's Next.
So if anybody's watching this and they're in New York City and they want to hang with us for a day, we will be there.
And you're going to hang out with Shep, me, David Merriman Scott, Howard Tiersky, all these. In fact,
Mark
I'm interviewing.
Schaefer, your long lost sister, Helen.
Helen Yu will be there. Different Yu.
I didn't know you had a sister named Helen Yu.
There's another guy named Dennis Yu that's a San Diego multimillionaire. And other people think that I'm that guy. So Shep Hyken, everybody, is an accomplished speaker, author. There's a lot of people out there that want to write a book, that want to speak on stage, that want to sell courses, that want to travel, that want to have all the things that Shep has. So today we get a behind the scenes experience with Shep, and I'm going to ask him a series of questions. I did some research. I bought some of his books. I looked at some of his training. I looked at his different articles. I even found that you rank #1 on hire slow, fire fast. Type that into Google.
Hire slow, fire fast. Yes,
Yeah,
because I wrote an article
all
about
the
that.
time. Yeah. And then if you type in loyalty department, you rank #1. And all big companies have a loyalty department, which of course is not the customer service department. And you even outrank AT&T and other clients that you have on these customer service issues.
Wow. I'm impressed. I'm amazed. You're making me feel good. Thank you.
Shep is the Chief Awesomeness Officer.
Chief Amazement Officer.
Amazement. I keep saying awesome. Chief Amazement Officer.
Yep.
I found that in one of his 8 books, he talks about the 5 cults of the customer. And first, when I think cult, I think of like drinking Kool-Aid. But
it is like drinking Kool-Aid. We've got to get all employees to drink the Kool-Aid. And cult is not a dirty word or not a scary word. People associate cult with religion. But here is the interesting thing. True story. I wrote this book, Cult of the Customer, sent it to a bunch of potential clients. And one of them came back saying, I will never do business with you. We are so anti-cult. And it was it was a hospital that had a faith-based hospital. And so I sent back the definition of a cult. And a cult is really a group of people who have a common interest and do things together. If you ride your bike through Central Park every Sunday with a group of people and you never want to miss, in a sense, that's a cult. When I described it and sent the definition, guess what happened? I worked for that company.
And cult is short for culture, right?
Right. I mean, we played off of that word culture. And the 5 cults, just to give you I know that's not what we're going to talk about, but one is uncertainty. In the customer service world, the first time a customer does business with you, they're uncertain. They only hope it's going to be what you promised it would be. Number 2, we're going to get them into alignment. Number 3, we're going to get them into experience. Once they're aligned with what we're about and they start to experience it, we want to move them to ownership. If the experience is good, we want them to know that it's the same every time. It's predictable. It's consistent. And if all that's happening, you move them into the cult of amazement, because the word always, they're always friendly, always helpful, always nice. It's what we want them to experience all of the time. And if it's what they want, they say we're amazing. You don't have to buy the book anymore. So we just took 250 pages and gave it to you in 60 seconds.
There you go. That's amazing. Thank you for giving me my time back. So a lot of the people in our community, they're entrepreneurs. They have a successful business, but maybe they're not a public speaker. They're not charging $50,000 to be able to speak. They don't have a speaker reel. They don't have the apparatus that you have. How does someone who has a successful business and maybe knows something about how to drill teeth or how to sell houses or how to repair garage doors start to get their name out there and start to what do they not know about that you're not going to get rich publishing a book?
Sure. You don't get rich publishing a book. but writing the book can make you rich. So somebody once said, when I wrote my first book, Moments of Magic, they said, this book is going to make you $1 million. Not because I wrote a book and sold books. It's because of the people that come to me and hire me as a result of reading the book. So I want you to think, you use the word, the profession of dentistry. You have a dentist that wants to teach other dentists how to be successful, right? You need to stop thinking of yourself as a dentist. Whatever and we're using dentist for anything you do. You could be a car salesman. You can be anything you want. You need to think of yourself as a media company. When I started to realize that the more media that I create through articles, videos, podcasts, or the more programs I'm on, similar to those, I'm going to start to generate interest in what I do, and the phone will start to ring. Now, when I started out my business many years ago as a speaker, it was pick up the phone, smile, and dial. 100 calls a week. We connect with 12 people. Of the 12 people, 1 to 2 of those are interested in what I do, and 15% of the people interested will actually hire me. So it could take 3-4 weeks to get that first booking, but I recognized it was a numbers game. I learned this, by the way, from Tom Hopkins, who wrote the book, How to Master the Art of Selling. And I saw Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins when I was right out of college. And I thought, I can do this for a living. I can be a speaker. I had an entertainment background. I did comedy clubs and magic and that type of thing growing up. I started with birthday parties. And so I knew I could get in front of people. And I thought I was going to go to work for my family's business, which they own gas stations. And like, I graduate in May. I go full time with them in June 1st, which, by the way, I'd worked for them all my life, pumping gas on the weekends or over the summer job and all that. And so here I am thinking, I'm going to go to work for the family business. And in September, they decide to sell it. So now what do I do? And a few months later, I saw this motivational program with Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins. And I thought, I can do that. So that's how I started. But I learned all this technical selling, smile and dial. It's a numbers game. But when the internet came around, when YouTube was there, when I started to find that I could do a blog and people would follow me and then they'd like what I wrote. So that's the key. And really, if you look at all the different channels that I'm in, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm blogging, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, I'm starting to get on TikTok thanks to you. And when we look at all these different channels and how we get incredible reach for less time than what it takes. If I make 100 calls, it's 2 to 3 hours a day, 3 to 4 days a week. Okay. Yeah. So let's call it 8 to 10 hours a week that I do this, right? Okay. If I take 8 hours a week and devote it to creating content, I'm going to reach a whole level of numbers that I can't do on the telephone. I mean, 100 times what I could, 1,000 times, right? And what happens is over a period of time, you start to get known and the phone starts to ring, or the inquiries come in through your website.
What about the folks who they start creating content because they think that they're going to be a social media superstar or a viral sensation within the next couple of weeks, and they get no engagement? They're sharing their knowledge, they're posting on LinkedIn, they're commenting, they're doing all the things you're supposed to do. How should they think about that?
So it's not a marathon. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And you need to recognize it's not going to happen overnight. So you have to build up. And the more you build up with the right, and by the way, learn a heck of a lot from you, Dennis, with the SEO optimization and understanding the metrics. And so you are so much more sophisticated than I am today. And that even in the beginning, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I'm throwing mud against the wall and hoping some of it sticks, right? So, but I also know this. First of all, quality is not as important. Quality of production is not as important as quality of content. So you can have okay video, make sure your sound is good enough, because sound is really important. Most people today don't watch on a big screen. They watch on their phones, if they wouldn't even call them a phone, your mobile device. So really, quality is okay. Make sure the audio is really good, and then you can caption and things like that. And make sure the content is relevant. And what I did when I first started out back in 1983, 39 years ago, amazingly, I know I don't look that old because I remember I started right out of college. When you're bald, you don't see the gray hair. So how's my hair look? Does it look good? So
you and me both.
So anyway, when I started, it was a numbers game. Remember, it's 100 calls a week. But what I did is I made a list, a target list. And that's important. You need to plan out. So I would, if I decide I want to do YouTube videos, by the way, frequency, I think once a week's reasonable. How long should your video be? Some people argue the longer, the better. I think 2-3 minutes. You do TikTok videos, 30 seconds is what we're looking for.
Right.
What can you do in 30 seconds? You amazingly can do quite a bit in 30 seconds if you start looking at it. But I would map out the strategy with lots of content to create. You don't have to create it all at once, but create the schedule, the media schedule, and start to do it. By the way, I love all kinds of different media, and this is how I do it. I write an article. It's a short article. It's 400 to 500 words. Why do 400 words? I learned a long time ago that gets picked up as an article versus a short little blog post. And I love Seth Godin, one of my idols in the whole digital marketing space. But if you'll notice, much of his blogging, and I get his blog every day, it's short, paragraph or two. You don't see that picked up in an Inc. magazine, Forbes magazine, or some other publication. Why? Because it's short. But by doing 500 words, I'm picked up in numerous publications every single week. I do write for Forbes. That was an interesting story how that happened. It took a long time and they pay me. So I'm actually one of the paid contributors, and I'm very careful what I post there. A lot of people say, would you write an article about me? I go, maybe. We can't make it promotional. You got to make it informational. And by the way, that's another key. If you're seen as promoting what you do, that is nowhere near as effective as helping people be more successful at what they do. So, and the more you give away, it seems the more you give, the more you get. So I know I'm all over the place, but let me go back to the article. I write the article. From the article, I look at this, I go, if I can't get a half a dozen tweetable lines out of this article, I didn't write a good article. So now I have tweets and memes that I can post from the article. Why not take that article, throw it onto a teleprompter? And by the way, I write the way I talk. And then once I'm finished writing the article, I hand it to an editor in my office. She cleans it up grammatically. Otherwise, it sounds good, but it sure doesn't read very well. But I take the original article that reads more like I sound, right? And I throw that into a teleprompter, and I've learned and I practice to get natural on the teleprompter. So you don't realize right now I'm reading a teleprompter on everything I'm saying. Now, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm looking for the typewriter eyes.
I want it to almost seem that natural. So I actually have this app. I'm going to tell you what, I think it's called Smart Prompt. I have one on my phone and I have it on my iPad because that's what I use for my teleprompter. And Smart Prompt, and there's other programs like this. It's like $2 a month. It is voice activated. So I put the script in there, and I can talk and I can pause and I can get animated. I can slow down and get serious. And the script moves with the words that I use. So there's many programs like that. And you can do you don't need fancy cameras. You can do you can even use your iPhone, especially the new one, that 14. Oh, incredible camera. What is it? 47 megapixels, films HD 40 or 30 frames per second. I mean, it's an unbelievable camera in there. So you've got that, and you've got an iPad teleprompter. And by the way, I went on eBay, it was eBay, and I bought a used iPad, just an inexpensive one, because all I'm using it for is the teleprompter. You can buy the holder for the teleprompter for about $125. You can buy cheap, inexpensive lights, and you put a little green screen up behind you, and now all you need is a little bit of editing software when you're done. And my goal was, every video that I shoot takes under an hour to actually create. Now, I don't do that anymore. I used to do it all myself, but I just go and shoot the video. I walk out and let the team figure out how to make it look pretty. But that's really what we do for the video. So you've got the written, the article turns into tweets, one-liners. You've got the video. Those alone should give you what you need to get started with 2-3 days a week of content with tweets happening every day.
So on an ongoing basis, now that you've already covered pretty much everything in customer service, how do you decide what's next?
I keep thinking to myself, when am I going to run out of content? My brain is now trained to pick up on all kinds of things. So the other day I was doing a podcast. And by the way, a podcast is a great, can I share with you before I get into I've got to tell you 2 other really cool, easy ways to doing a podcast. Once you've done it a couple of times, it's very easy to do. You could be a rock star in your industry. You don't need, when I first started podcasting, I worked for CBS Radio, and they had me on a national podcast program, thousands and thousands listens, right? And I said, it's doing nothing for my brand. I just want to talk about service and experience. Can I just do that? It was a business show. It's too limiting. Why don't you go on your own and do that? And I left. It was hard to leave the cachet of CBS Radio, because I could go to any studio in the country and have somebody come in and join me live, and they also gave me equipment for my home. So I left and I started my own podcast, and I average on a good day, 1,200, 1,500 people watching an episode. Every one of those people are interested in what I have to talk about. It's very specific and narrowly niched. And the riches are in the niches, they say. And this is a perfect example of that. You don't have to have lots of people listening to you. If you're a dentist, you only need people who are dentists listening to you. You don't care about car salespeople, internet salespeople, whatever. You are looking to talk to your tribe and only your tribe. So anyway, that's a comment about that. Where was I going with this? Oh, an easy blog post to make, which really is powerful. I call it my top 5 article. I do it once a week. It's on Monday. It's the 5 favorite articles I read about what we do in the customer service and experience world. I read 10 articles a day, and I choose 5, and I do 1 or 2 sentences as to why I like the article with the link to the article. And let me tell you what I do. It's very important. Number 1, the article is good. So it's the favorite one I read, but I also am looking for people that I want to build relationships with. Are there companies out there because as soon as we put them in this top 5 blog, when we post it and then we start tweeting out and tagging all the companies and the authors of these articles, guess what happens? They thank me. What can we do for you? And we start building this relationship. And you might say, hey, there's an ulterior motive there. At the end of the day, I don't even care what happens other than I made somebody happy, made them more successful, got them more exposure. And as I said earlier, the more you give, the more you get. And that's what we're doing right here. I'm sharing with you all my trade secrets. There are no secrets per se, but that's what I'm doing.
So how about another secret? How do you decide how much to charge?
Oh, okay. Oh, by the way, you were asking about content. We can come back to that.
Yeah, I'll come back to that.
Do you want to go content first or charge first?
Let's go charge first.
Okay, we'll go. We may not even get back to the content. Doesn't matter. But real quick, I have trained my brain to look for ideas as I'm writing, and I read so much. All right, charging. For my speech, it's supply and demand. Nobody knows what to charge when they walk out the door. But I'll tell you this, if you are a successful CEO, maybe you're the chief customer officer for Amazon, and now you decide to go out on your own, you're going to have demand, and you should charge based on that past experience. But you have to also be a good speaker. And you don't have to be the best speaker, but you have to be good. I know speakers that charge $35,000 to $50,000 for what they do, that they're okay speakers, but they were the high-level executive of a very well-known brand, and they can share quite a bit. So
we call those logo speakers.
Yeah, you're right. They're logo speakers, which is great. And there's nothing wrong with that speaker either. You can learn a lot. And so, for example, the Disney speakers, I go up against Disney all the time, known for customer service and experience, right? So and by the way, my fee for training, which is actually my trainers, not even me going out and doing it, is less than Disney. But we go up against Disney, and Disney sometimes win. I figured out why they win. They have this incredible story. But I also figured out what we do that is actually potentially better for our client. And I tell them right up front, Disney is amazing. I will never knock Disney. They are an incredible program. Their Disney Institute speakers are awesome or amazing, as I like to say. But what's the difference between Shep and Disney? I don't have the cred of Disney theme parks and resorts. But what I'll tell you is this. Anything I talk about, it's easy to bridge the gap between what I'm talking about and how you're going to use it. When you hear from Disney, Zappos, Ritz-Carlton, you need to work to interpret how that story works for your business. And some of the speakers are better at it with these different brand name training programs. Some speakers are better at bridging that gap than others. But I make sure that if you get my content, I have designed my content. And the way I think is, here's a general experience. Now, how does that apply to you and your business? Let's drill down and make it happen. So anyway, I'm going off on this. So you asked originally, how do you know what to charge? Supply and demand. Come out of the gate with what you think you're worth. If people say to you, oh, you were great, how much would you charge to come to my company and do this? And you tell them and you never hear from them again, you're probably charging too much. If you get a yes from everybody you tell the fee to, you're charging too little. So my fees are actually published on my website. You can go to speaker bureaus and you can see my fee range. I start at 25 and go up to 50. And if there's a bigger scope of work, I probably charge a little bit more depending upon that scope of work. But that's a general fee range. But for here in the US, international, it's a little bit different, but you get the idea. Plus travel, plus a hotel, et cetera, et cetera. So I did not get there overnight. I started out many years ago at $500. And I said, if I can book for a month, I can make a living. $2,000 a month was enough back then, not enough today. But I also had just enough money in the bank that I knew if I could make, I said, I need to make $1,000 a month for the next few months. I need to bump it to 2 for the next full year I'm in business. The year after that, 4, the year after that, 8. And I put together a 10-year plan that ultimately had me getting to at least $250,000 in net. But I built up to that. And I said, how am I going to do that? I looked at what I was going to charge and how many dates I had to do to get there. I didn't want to do 200 days a year to make $200,000. I wanted to do 75 dates and see where that took me. Eventually, my fees have gone up as my fee range is now. I now try to do about, the perfect year would be 4 a month, 48. Okay, it doesn't mean they're going to do actually 4 a month. Maybe 1 month I'll do 7, and the next month I'll do none, and the following month I'll do 6. You know what I'm saying? It goes up and down. But if I can do that, I'd be happy. The other thing about my business is similar to the dentist decides to do this, they're still a dentist. So they've got their dental practice, plus their training business. In my business, I've got my speaking business. I've got my training business. We do influencer work. I do special video projects that I use. They like me as an influencer, and then I brand to their company. I'm a podcast host for some companies. So I'll actually be the host of their show, not mine. That's fun. By the way, never thought about that, except this thing called the pandemic came along and forced me to stay home and figure out ways to make money with my talent. So there you go.
So you have like 6 or 7 income streams from
Yes.
this, and the biggest one is speaking.
Yeah, but the others combined actually eclipse the speaking.
So I'm an Asian, so I'm good at math. So if you speak 4 times a month, and let's just say it averages at 30, you're doing 1.2 per year just in speaking.
Right. So, I mean, anywhere around, recognize you got bureaus that are going to take 25% on average. You've got some events where I will actually feel it's important enough for me to speak for free. And by the way, you seldom ever get me to discount my fee. If I decide it's worth doing, I'm not going to discount. I'll speak for free. Sometimes they'll say, well, you only have $10,000, but I go, man, I want to be in front of that audience. 2 things. Number 1, will you give me a glowing testimonial if I do a good job? Yes. Number 2, will you connect me with 5 people, not in your company, or if they're a big company inside your company, that you would hire somebody like me, who, by the way, have a budget for me.
Yeah.
And then let's take the money you were going to pay me and let's write it to the American Cancer Society or Parkinson's.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just passed away. And now I'm doing it for charity. It makes me feel good.
Or get them to buy 1,000 copies of your book for the audience.
Yeah, but based on what you make on those books, you don't make a ton of money on books, but 1,000's a good start. 1,000's a good start.
Yeah, that's what I got at my last conference. They didn't want to pay the fee, but they bought the 1,000 books.
Yep. What's really nice is when they pay your fee and they still buy 1,000 books. I love when that happens.
Yeah. So when should you decide to speak for free or not? Like I've spoken for free, Traffic and Conversion Summit, which is the conference for digital marketers. I've spoken for free at Social Media Examiner, or in a social media marketing world, which is a huge conference, right? That's all that. And what I found, and I'm curious to see what you think, because you're far greater than I am in this space, is that when I do the free speaking at the big industry conferences, not like some small meetup, the people that come up afterwards are the CMOs and the VPs of digital that then hire me for a $50,000, $100,000 training. So I'm happy if it's the leading industry conference, I'll do it. I'll even pay for my own travel.
Yeah. So I've worked Social Media Examiner probably 4 or 5 years. I've done it. And every time I walk back with business, by the way, I love that conference because I like to go to the other sessions and learn. And plus a bunch of my friends, and I wish I would have known you. I didn't do it this past year. But man, you'd have been the guy I'd be hanging out with when I'm there. And so they pay your expenses only. And all of us go there because we want to give back, but we also hope that maybe we'll get some business from it. Sure, that's fine. But you're right. So you want to take a look at the audience. Now, there are some speakers that speak for the ability to sell from the platform. And they will give you, if they do it right, you feel like you walked away with good value in spite of the heavy pitch they have. It's done wrong. It's just a product pitch from the stage for the next 45 minutes. And
an infomercial.
That turns me off. But the right speaker, you'll walk away, go, man, I got some great information. I need to have more of this speaker's content. So that's important. So look at the audience. What is your goal? Is your goal to get more speaking engagements? Is your goal to network? If it's the kind of thing where, hey, I just want to go to the conference and learn because the conference I'd go to, and they said if I speak for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I can have a free ticket. What the heck? It's worth it.
Yeah. And to go to the speaker ready room and meet all the other speakers.
Yeah. It's the networking. Yeah. You never know who you're going to meet. I do every year. CCW is the largest customer or contact center week. It used to be the call center week. years ago, but it's no longer just phone calls. It's all kinds of social media and other digital AI customer service type thing. I was asked to do that. And they said, look, we don't pay our speakers unless you're a celebrity like Magic Johnson, but we're going to put you in front of all these executives of call centers. Do you want to do this? And I thought, you know what? I'll do it. I'll do it. And they actually, after doing it, they put me on their board of advisors. And that has been a wonderful experience to network. I have learned so much about what I didn't know, which is great. But on top of that, that helped get me recognized into a niche area within the whole customer service world to work with support centers. And it's been great. And every year I will go to this. And even when I don't speak, because I'm on their advisory board, I pay my own way there. And I spend 2 days walking the aisles of the trade show, talking to all of the exhibitors, learning what's going on in my industry and picking up new leads along the way.
Amazing. So speaking at the industry leading conferences, having the industry leading books, writing for Forbes and these other places, having a podcast leads you to the high dollar consulting. And
yeah, that's
like you were saying, Shep, the smile and dial, I've never done that. Every single client I've ever had, whether it's like a Nike or a Red Bull or Starbucks or doing analytics and ads for these guys, has been because I've shared my knowledge. So you guys should listen to what Shep has said, where literally just put it out there. I see a lot of speakers where they're trying to sell from the stage, or they're trying to do webinars that are really just infomercials. I literally just like, look what Shep is doing here. Notice I'm just analyzing his techniques. He's telling stories and he's teaching through these particular stories instead of just like preaching as a professor. Because when you tell these stories of what happened, your authority is conveyed through your experience. And then what I'll do is I'll tell a story about, here's what happened when, I'll tell you like one example. Do you remember that guy, Oscar Pistorius in the Olympics? He's the guy with one leg. Like he's one fake leg, and he ran the 400 meters and he was celebrated, he won a medal, that whole thing. So we had a Nike we had a commercial, we ran ads. We were doing a bunch of ads, social media ads for Nike. So we had an ad with him. It was beautiful, of him that running out of the pistol, right? Like shooting out of the gun. And I forgot what the logo was, but we had all these campaigns around Oscar Pistorius. And I was at Nike's headquarters. It was like 9:30 in the morning. Someone else comes running into the conference room. It says, guys, you need to stop all the ads, stop all the campaigns. And I'm thinking, what do you mean? They're fantastic. And that morning was found out that he shot his girlfriend. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Yeah. And what was the theme of it? Was something crazy. It was something around like guns and shooting or going fast or something. So I had our team shut down all the ads right there on the spot. And we didn't get any kind of social media flack, thank goodness, right? Because you imagine like the guy's girlfriend, and we see a Nike ad of him shooting out of a gun.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. But I want you to think about it's so important that you never know in that situation, is the person you're doing business with going to go off, do something wrong. I once recommended a speaker to a client not knowing his full background, only knowing what I knew about him over the last 10 years. Had I known what he had done in his past, why he went to jail, I probably would not have recommended that speaker. But he did such a good job of pushing that off the social pages and never talking about it that I had no idea. It was one of my clients that said, you know who you're recommending? And I said, yeah. Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing this with me. And you never know what's going to happen.
But I find that when you tell these stories and you share experiences of what you've learned, that's when you build this connection. You have this vulnerability. So what I'll do is I'll tell a story like what Shep's done, like this Nike one. And then I'll say, and here's the process that we use to be able to do reputation management and turn things off, or monitor who our top brands are, or so I'll publish these guidebooks, these things that are, and some CMOs actually will print out the whole thing and go through it and tell me how good it is. But I found, like for me, that's the best way to close more speaking, is by saying, here's one story of many other stories, or this. I have a lot of examples that are like that, but look at what Shep is doing. Look at what I'm doing, where we're teaching by telling stories. So it doesn't feel like we're ever selling.
Yep. Well, you know, David Meerman Scott, he's in our group. Have you had him on the show yet?
I'm interviewing him in 30 minutes.
All right. In 30 minutes, his whole concept of newsjacking.
Yeah.
And taking an existing story and using somebody else's story with your expertise and commentary behind it. But it's timing is everything. You got to be paying attention. And then as soon as that news breaks, oh my gosh, that's a great story. So you remember when United Airlines, the passenger was taken off the plane?
Yeah.
Okay, I newsjacked that. I immediately started giving my commentary. There was a Southwest Airlines, or no, not Southwest, a JetBlue experience where the flight attendant just got sick and tired of the passengers. And he said, you held up a case of or a 6-pack of beer that was for the passengers. He goes, popped one open and took a sip. He goes, I am out of here. And the plane not yet pulled away. He opens the door, the chute comes out, and he slides down the chute and delays the flight by hours, of course. And so I newsjacked that when Comcast had their customer service debacle where they wouldn't let a person cancel, and they put this person recorded the call and then started playing it and made national news. That night, I'm giving my commentary on a YouTube. I just reported it, put the keywords in there, and guess what happens? NBC calls me, Fox News calls me, all these different news outlets, and that's called newsjacking. That's a way to get great cred. Then you use those video clips on your website, elsewhere, to prove that you are an authority at what you do.
You are fantastic, Shep. I could listen to you all day.
We could talk all day, but you've got to talk to David in just a few minutes.
Just a few minutes. Yeah. So how would you summarize for people that want to become more like Shep? What is the practical tip? Why should they listen to our conversation?
The summary is where we first started. So we'll go full circle, and that is media company. Think about media, not about what you actually do. I'm a professional speaker. I specialize in customer service, but the actual truth is I am a media company. That's just my content that I exploit through the social media channels, through YouTube, through blogs, through articles like my Forbes column, that type of thing. So I am all about the media and about consistency and also quantity, but it's all good. It's not quality versus quantity. It's quality in the right quantity.
You're amazing. And you are
Thank
awesome.
you.
A lot of people are thinking they can never, as a final question, never think that they can be as polished as you. They don't have the kind of charisma and charm. Do you think that's possible? Like, what do you say to people like that?
I don't care if they're like me or not. I can give you example after example of speakers that aren't nearly as good as me, that bloggers that I think write okay articles, far more successful than I am. I don't know why, I don't know how, but it doesn't really matter. Their content resonates with the right audience, and that's who's hiring them. And that's where they're making their money. And that's what you need to think about. I could never be super successful training dentists how to create the practice of their dreams. But I can write a lot of articles, just wouldn't make any sense. But a dentist that has done it and is showing what they do, like Dr. Jeffrey Moffat I don't know if he is out of Australia. That's exactly what he does. He teaches dentists how to create the ultimate practice. And I know there's several others like him around the country, around the world that do that. So you need to think like that. It's what you do, your expertise, put it out there. You'll get better at it, but you got to start somewhere, and you're in the minor leagues till you get into the major leagues. You're not going to, you don't immediately, when you're born and you put a baseball bat or a hockey stick or whatever in your hand, you're not immediately a pro. You dream about being a pro. You work toward being a pro. And one day you might be a pro, but along the way, you're recognized for the accomplishments that you have. That may be all you need to be successful at what you do.
Actually, one final question. Is there a question you wish that you were asked?
Oh boy, we're talking about something I normally don't talk about, which is myself at this level. I usually talk about customer service and how to do better on your own. So there I'd have lots of tips to share with you. But I think you've done such a good job. It's not so much what I asked, but the one thing I want you to think about is when this person, you look at them and they're so successful, they weren't an overnight success.
Amen.
Talk about how long does it take to be successful? So in 1983, I started my business, as I mentioned, and I put together a plan. So if you already asked me the question, but let me reiterate the answer in a different way. And that is, how long does it take to be successful? It doesn't take long if you do it right and you're relentless about it. And realize, my friend Bud Dietrich, may rest in peace, he was my mentor. When he knew what I was getting ready to do, he says, Shep, I want you to work 40 hours a week. Now realize, I'm doing this full time. If you're not doing it full time, whatever your number is, your number, you can work 5 hours, 10 hours. He goes, I want you to work 40 hours a week at getting business. If that's what you do, and I'm not talking, when you write your speech, that doesn't get you business. You can write that on the evenings and the weekends. When you write an article, evenings and weekends. However, if you want to really become successful, spend all that time getting business. And if you devote your time to getting business, you'll start to get business. And so I always say the job isn't doing the speech, it's getting the speech. The job isn't doing a training program, it's getting the training program. So that's how I want people to be thinking.
Thank you so much, Shep. And that's why you're the world's #1 customer service speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being on the Coach U Show. Everyone tune in to Shep. He's absolutely fantastic. Google him. Go look at Hyken.com. Look at his training. If you're looking to hire a speaker, Shep Hyken is the one. And you can quote me on that. Thank you, Shep.
Thank you very much, Dennis.
Appreciate you so much, my friend. Talk soon.